Okay. Okay. So, not seeing, we'll go to item 8, Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm pleased to present AB 458. This measure requires the California Subject Matter Projects to conduct a feasibility study to determine the appropriate grade level, subject area, and potential cost of a pilot program to develop a standards-based aligned content and instructional software for use on portable electronic devices that would take the place of a standard textbook moving into the modern era. This idea comes from my own classroom experience. I often wondered why there wasn't one place or website that a teacher or student could visit and utilize to access classroom content, standards-based classroom content, much akin to a free textbook or an open source approach. Electronic materials have several potential advantages over printed textbooks. They can be less costly to produce, store, maintain, and move around a school district. They can be revised and updated more frequently and faster. They can include audio and video files and links to more in-depth information, something I know a classroom teacher would appreciate. They can be adapted to different learning styles, and they can give teachers more access to multiple sources for use with their students, and they can be much more engaging. The California Subject Matter Projects is housed at the University of California, but also includes California State University, the California Community Colleges, and K-12 education to provide professional development to teachers in 9 different subject areas. In other words, it has the intersegmental structure, the subject matter expertise, and expertise in working with actual classroom teachers needed to do this study. This bill will help move our schools out of the dinosaur era and into the 21st century age of electronic media. I respectfully ask for your aye vote and will be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
Are there any witnesses in support? Any witnesses in opposition? Questions from the committee members? Or comments, Ms. Weber?
Question. This is really just requesting a feasibility study. Is that what this is for? Bill?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a work in progress. We're talking with a variety of entities that have interest in this, and they've expressed a positive interest. So at this point, that is what we are requesting.
And we would fund a feasibility study. Is that what this was? This is about a funding bill, basically.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And this would be done, Mr. O'Donnell, under the auspices of UC?
Actually, it may be a consortium. It may include a variety of partners, as I did describe. There are a variety of partners that participate in the intersegmental consortia now.
Okay. Mr. Harper.
Why would the state get involved into this? You know, why wouldn't this be handled in terms of, you know, at the private level between the textbook folks?
Well, I think the state could do it on a much cheaper level. It could provide textbook access through a computer statewide at a much, at a great cost savings. I don't think a private company would have an interest in doing that.
Ms. Weber?
I was just going to ask so you've consulted the California State Matters Project to see if they have an interest. So they have an interest in doing this.
Yes.
Okay.
We've been talking, and that it landed over there because they did express interest.
Okay, good.
Yes.
As I said, we were going to request it. Now, so are they interested? Okay, good.
I would just add that as yourself, high school teacher, I know that the capability of technology in the classroom to enhance learning, and that our students are certainly ready for it and are doing it outside of the classroom. So, it is time for us to bring this into the classroom. Did I have people wanting to speak in favor?
Chair and members, Nadia Leal Carrillo with the University of California. The university does not have a position on this bill at this time, but we have been working closely with the author and providing some technical assistance in ways that and suggestions as to how this might look. I'm actually here joined by the director of our Diversity and Engagement, Executive Director Nina Moore, and I thought it'd probably be good if she could just elaborate and share a few words with you and just to describe at least what our interest is in this study at this moment.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell and Chair and members. I am the Executive Director of Diversity of Engagement at UC Office of the President, as well as the statewide Executive Director for the California Subject Matter Projects. And we have some existing instructional materials that we have developed and use as part of our professional development with teachers. And so we are interested in this concept that Mr. O'Donnell put forward. And our thinking is that we might consider using some of the existing materials in order to see how they're actually used as a part of this study. So it would yield some information about how, when, and why teachers can use these kinds of materials in their classrooms as part of professional learning and professional development.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Do I have a motion?
I'll move the bill. Second.
Moved by Mr. Levine, second by Mr. Jones Sawyer. The motion before us is due past appropriations. Madam Secretary, if you'd call the roll.
Medina.
Aye.
Medina, aye. Baker. Bloom.
Aye.
Bloom, aye. Chavez. Harper.
No.
Harper, no. Irwin.
Aye.
Irwin, aye. Jones Sawyer.
Aye.
Jones Sawyer, aye. Levine.
Aye.
Levine, aye. Linder.
Aye.
Linder, aye. Lowe. Santiago. Weber.
Aye.
Weber, aye. Williams. 7-1.
Mr. O'Donnell, 7-0. Your bill passes. I will keep it open for other members to add on.
7. Yeah. It was 7-1.
7-1. Next, we'll try item 17. Ms. Chong, don't see her? Okay, then I'll move to item 2. Mr. Bonta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Today I'm pleased to present AB 176, legislation that will address the health and education disparities of ethnic subgroups within the Asian Pacific Islander community. California is home to the nation's largest Asian American and second largest Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander populations. The API community, however, is not homogeneous. It is not monolithic. Each of our diverse API communities has different social, economic, and educational experiences and outcomes that need to be addressed differently. From Hmong to Fijian to Vietnamese to Korean to Filipino to Tongan, there are more than 23 distinct communities within the Asian American population and 19 within the Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander population. AB 176 requires the State Department of Public Health and our public higher education institutions to use disaggregated categories for each major Asian and Pacific Islander group in the U.S. Census. The bill further requires those entities to make the data publicly available on their website and to be included in each demographic report released by the institution. The data unveiled by AB 176 will give policymakers, government agencies, and community groups unprecedented access to critical information to better and more effectively serve the API community. I'm honored to present this important bill that recognizes the diversity of Asian and Pacific Islander groups within California. And it's my pleasure to have with me today 2 witnesses in support of the bill. If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
We have Mike Hua Win, researcher with the National Commission on Asian American and Pacific Islander on Research and Education at UCLA, and Karthik Ramakrishnan, professor and associate dean of the School of Public Policy at UC Riverside.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and distinguished committee members. My name is Mike Kwan Nguyen. I'm a higher education researcher, and as the Assembly members said, Asian American Pacific Islanders are too often misunderstood, misrepresented, and overlooked in research, policy debates, and in the development of educational programs. A key factor that contributes to the exclusion and misrepresentation of AAPIs is a lack of disaggregated data available to inform a proper understanding of Asian American and Pacific Islander students. Data that aggregates information for all AAPIs into a single category provides a misleading statistical portrait of a very diverse AAPI population. As a result, aggregated data becomes a barrier to policy and program development, which would advance the equitable treatment for the AAPI community. Simply put, the need for disaggregated data, which reveals significant disparities between AAPI subgroups, is one of the most important civil rights issues for the AAPI community. One of our research projects, iCount, brings attention to the ways in which aggregated data conceals significant educational disparities between AAPI subgroups. What we have learned through this project is that at no other time has data played such an important role in how decisions are made in organizational settings. As our state becomes increasingly diverse, we need to find ways to create a more equitable system of education. Data is an essential tool for social justice, shedding light on ways to mitigate disparities in educational outcomes and improve support for the most marginalized and vulnerable populations. Simply put, we need data that can be tailored to respond to specific needs and to inform efforts that effectively support an increasingly complex and diverse student population. The diverse AAPI population cannot be overstated. The racial category is inclusive of 48 different ethnic groups, a dramatic range of immigration histories, and persons who speak over 300 different languages. Aggregated data also conceals the fact that AAPIs occupy positions along full range of the social economic spectrum, from the poor and the working class to the affluent and the highly skilled. More relevant to our discussion today are significant differences in degree attainment rates between AAPI subgroups. What is concealed by aggregated data are high proportions of Southeast Asians and Pacific Islanders with low levels of educational attainment. The educational outcomes of these groups are very different from those found among East Asians and South Asians, who have a greater likelihood of attending college and earning a degree. In summary, the time is now for us to pursue a data quality movement for the AAPI community. Data disaggregation is an important civil rights issue for the AAPI community, and through leadership in the state of California, we can provide information that will be best to inform equitable policies and practices for the most marginalized and vulnerable Asian American Pacific Islander subgroups. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Medina, and the rest of the members of the Assembly Higher Education Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you and to provide testimony in support of AB 176, also known as the Accounting for Health and Education and API Demographics, or AHEAD Act, introduced by Assemblymember Rob Bonta. I speak today as a professor with nearly two decades of research experience on AAPI populations. I've written many books and articles and conducted many surveys on these populations, and I direct a project called AAPIdata.com. I'm also a recently appointed member of the California Commission on API Affairs, and have interacted extensively with the U.S. Census Bureau and the White House Initiative on AAPIs. AB 176 goes a long way in addressing the problems that currently exist in the manner that the state of California collects and, importantly, disseminates data on Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islander populations. For example, the U.S. Census Bureau currently provides information on the demographic, health, and educational attainment outcomes of 20 detailed Asian origins and 6 detailed Pacific Islander origins through its publicly available American Community Survey data that you can find through FactFinder, for example. Because of such data disaggregation, we know, for example, that only 14% of Cambodian Americans in California have gotten a college degree, or that 42% of Hmong Americans in California have not finished high school. While these Census Bureau findings are important, they don't go nearly far enough. We need state agencies to fill the gap, and especially in a state like California, where Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders account for about 1 in every 7 residents in the state, and they are the fastest growing racial groups in the state. California is also important nationally because it's a political and policy trendsetter for the rest of the nation, and the importance of California for AAPIs is enormous. About 1 out of every 3 Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders live in California. So what happens here has national ramifications. Now, looking just at educational attainment in California, we currently don't know how, for example, several Southeast Asian and Pacific Islander populations are faring in different types of institutions at the K-12, community college, Cal State, and UC levels. In many instances, we don't know what's happening statewide for these groups and these institutions, and we certainly don't know what is happening more locally. Maybe there are particular universities or particular counties where Cambodian American students are doing much better than expected. It would be important to know what seems to be working in those institutions or in those geographies so that other places can learn and perhaps implement similar programs. There are also prominent examples on the health side, but I'll spare you those details given the scope of this committee. AB 176 solves problems by making sure that we at least meet the standards set by the U.S. Census Bureau with respect to collecting and reporting data. It also allows for powerful comparisons between these two types of data collections. Without these improvements proposed under AB 176, problems in public health and education cannot be identified and addressed, leading to continuing disparities and, importantly, added costs in care and educational services that might be more efficiently addressed through prevention and early intervention. I believe that this bill is strong. It could be further improved. I'll just say two quick things. One is that we could provide access to confidential data for researchers that pass very rigorous tests, like they do right now with the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau has 5 research data centers in California, 2 universities in Northern California, and 3 in Southern California. These centers provide researchers with access to restricted data in order to answer important problems that involve small populations. So, for example, you could run a model that you can see whether Native Hawaiians, Tongans, Laotian, or Hmong, how they're doing in different particular institutions of higher education. And you could also run analyses to see whether being in a small institution versus a large institution, or being in an institution in a suburban or a rural area leads to different outcomes than in an urban area. A lot of times when you ask agencies to report out public data, they cannot report it down to very small populations. This would be a solution, allowing protected confidential access so that researchers can do this work as opposed to asking state agencies to do this work. A lot of times they might not have the resources or the skills to be able to pull it off, or it might be too expensive to do so. And finally, one final improvement to consider later on is to perhaps add an indicator of average time to degree, or to clarify completion rates at various time intervals. As we know, at the community college level and even at the 4-year college level, a lot of times we look at 6-year completion rates and not 4-year completion rates. That said, the rest of the bill is very strong. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of it. I urge the California State Legislature to support and pass this timely and important bill.
Mr. Chairman, the members of the committee, my name is Willie Pilote, representing 176,000 members in the state of California under ASME and a significant API community in our workforce. We think this is great public policy to move forward, and we ask for your strong support of it. And we would like to commend the Assembly member for bringing it forward, Mr. Bonta, because I think at this point, being able to collect the appropriate data, have it appropriately available at the right different appropriate agencies or in the public domain is something that will benefit us all, and we ask for your strong support of it as well.
Other persons of the audience who want to speak in support?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Christopher Castrillo on behalf of the California Faculty Association. Again, our Political Action Committee has adopted a support position for Mr. Bonta's AB 176 support letter forthcoming. In the meantime, thank you for introducing this legislation. Pleased to be in support. Thank you.
And if I could, just to remind the witnesses, if they would just state their name, what organization, and in support, because I see a long line out there.
Kimberly Chen on behalf of the California Pan-Ethnic Health Network. Appreciate the author for bringing this forward. Very much in support. Thank you.
Linda Liu with Young Invincibles in support.
Good afternoon, Assembly members. First off, I want to say, thank you, Assemblymember Bonta, for introducing this bill. My name is Faye Seychell. I am a representative from the Union community, as well as an alumni of UC Davis. I am here on behalf of the Union people of California, and there's actually about 30 of them outside that they can't fit in this room. On behalf of the Union community, we'd like to urge you to support AB 176. It's such an important piece of legislation that not only is it collecting data, but it impacts the lives of human Americans all over California, as well as the API, the different sub-ethnic groups. Secondly, I'd like to...
I'm going to remind, please, the witness that I just finished asking just for your name your organization and support. We have a very long line, so
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. I have some documents that I'll leave with the reporter. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Tom P. I'm a rocket scientist. I'm also the Vice President of Public Relations for APAPA, Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs. And I'm here to give a strong support to AB 176 and also strongly recommend to add UMIAN onto the list that along with the Hmong and the Cambodian and the Thai, the Indonesian. Thank you for your consideration.
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Offerman. I am president of TOFA of Sacramento that serves the Pacific Islander in the region of Sacramento. I'm also a commissioner from the Asian and Pacific Islander Commission, and we strongly support this bill and hopefully to benefit our people. Oh, one more. Can we please add for the Yumian ethnic community into that bill? Thank you.
Julian Kennedy, representing the California Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce, in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark McDonald McCallum Group, on behalf of the Pasadena and Los Angeles Community College Districts, in support. Thank you.
Andrew Martinez, California State University, in support of the bill. Thank you.
Nadia Leal Carrillo with the University of California. No position at this time, but we look forward to working with the author, specifically to the question raised by the committee analysis on undergraduate and graduate data. Thank you.
Mary Moyle with the Chancellor's Office for the Community Colleges. We also have no position at this time, but would like to take this opportunity to thank the author, staff, and the committee staff for working with us.
Good afternoon. My name is Koi Seifan. I'm a member of the Yumian community. I'm also the board chair of Lao Family Community Development, an organization with 3 offices serving the communities of Oakland, San Pablo, and Sacramento. I'm here to support AB 176, and along with my many fellow supporters, I urge the committee to add Yumian to this bill because I believe in a self-sufficient, thriving Yumian community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Joe Liu. I'm here on behalf of Yumian people, and I'm here to support AB 176. I want to encourage the implementation of Yumian in AB 176, and I represent the Yumian American National Coalition.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nice Chow. I'm a student at Sac City College, transferring to Sac State in the fall. I also am a program coordinator at Hmong Women's Heritage. It's a leading nonprofit that provides programs and services to the Hmong and Min community for over 21 years. I strongly support this AB 176, and I would like to strongly recommend that you add the Yumian student demographic information into this bill. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Seipan. I'm a graduate at Sac State, and I'm representing on behalf of Yumian Community Services, the only Yumian organization here in Sacramento serving the Yumian population. And I strongly support the AB 176 and urge you to please add Yumian to the bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, you guys. My name is Naya Turn. I'm a graduate from Sac State, and I urge you guys to pass AB 176. And I also support adding Yumian to AB 176. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sing Se Chow. I'm alumni of Sacramento State University, and I'm also an employee with Franchise Tax Board with the State of California. And I support AB 176 and adding Yumian to the bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Assembly members and Chair of the Higher Education Committee. My name is Anastasia Pien, and I support AB 176 with the amendments to add Yumian into the language as a major Asian group. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Ashley Lee, and I am a board member for Union Community Services here in Sacramento, as well as an administrator for the only mental health agency serving the API community at Asian Pacific Community Counseling, and I urge you to pass AB 176 with amendments to include the Union community. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tom Sepan. I am Union, and I'm a resident of Sacramento for 30 years. I'm here to approve 176, AB 176. Please add 176 to the bill, please. Thank you.
Any witnesses in opposition? No witnesses in opposition. Assemblymember Bonta, would you like to close? Questions?
I'm sorry, I'm doing the health committee and this committee at the same time, back and forth. And I'm really interested in the bill and supporting it because I know Assemblymember Bonta and where his heart is, and I think it's wonderful that we're recognizing people. Did you take the amendments that they're asking for? Because I didn't hear that. Was that discussed before for the Hmong community?
Yeah, no, thank you for raising the issue, Assemblymember Chavez. Right now, the way the bill is structured, it does not include Yumian. The reason for that is because we've conformed the data collection requirements in the bill with the U.S. Census categories that currently exist and that are complied with by UC and CSU. And we've also added the Department of Public Health to a pre-existing law that included the Department of Industrial Relations and another department, and conformed the categories for the Department of Public Health to those categories. Again, those don't include at the moment Yumian. Similar bills have been proposed in the past and have fallen down in appropriations. So in order to keep costs to a reasonable amount and to ensure the success of the overall bill as a whole, at this time we've elected not to include Yumian. But we're open to considering to discuss it, and including, I mean, the whole idea of this bill is to include as many sub-ethnic groups as possible to make sure that we have data and evidence about each ethnic group so that we can have evidence-based solutions to the problems that ethnic groups face. So today I think it's too late, Assemblymember Chavez, to include that amendment at this time, but we are open to considering it going forward, being mindful of the impacts it will have on the fiscal tag the bill will get going forward.
Well, that was my concern when I was reading the bill. You know, we had a hearing the other day, and it was pointed out that we have like 93 different languages and cultures in the state of California. 93. And I think all of them, you know, deserve respect and have unique concerns, not just health issues, but also economic, education issues that need to be recognized so that we ensure everybody has equal opportunity for the gifts of the society. So that was just my concern. How do we some way draft a bill that recognizes, you know, the richness of all the cultures in the state? And so when I saw this was, I appreciate, and I know where his heart is, and I like the guy a lot. So I'm thinking, how do we get there, but recognizing this is only a step, not the full direction we need to be going. So that's just make that for a comment. Maybe somebody smarter than us will figure out how to do that. But that was my concern. Thank you.
Mr. Harper.
May I, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just thank you for your thoughtful comments, Assemblymember Chavez. I'll say this. This bill doesn't do everything we'd like it to do. We've made a strategic choice to make significant progress through this bill. For example, the bill only addresses UC, CSU, and community colleges on the education side, which is, of course, why we're here today. On the health side, includes the Department of Public Health. There are many other state departments where data is gathered where we could also gather similar data, but we haven't asked that through this bill at this time, again, because of the cost and realities that we've seen in the past with bills getting dropped in appropriations. So, there are other ethnic subgroups that we could include and probably should include. So we're faced with the very difficult question of, do we want to make significant progress and move the ball forward through this bill, or do we want to risk losing the whole bill and maybe not getting anything passed at all? And it's not an easy question. We'll continue to think about it and try to get a bill that will both be signed and represent and embrace the full diversity of our API population.
Mr. Harper?
Thank you very much. In regards to this bill, in this data collection, does this all depend on being self-reported, or do any of these get assigned by any education or health officials?
It is self-reported data, just as it is in the Census Bureau as well. One thing I should also add as a point of clarification, these are detailed categories as reported on the race forms in the U.S. Census and in other areas. So it's not quite the same as culture, it's not quite the same as language, and that's important to keep in mind. The culture, language, ancestry, heritage, these are all different categories. This is part of the detailed race reporting category under the U.S. Census Bureau.
But the question I have, I'm going down,
sure,
is people's opinion of what their racial or ethnic identity is can be different in terms of how they're perceived by other folks, or their identity may change over time.
Absolutely, and there's some evidence that some of that identity changes over time. What we're talking about here, it's kind of, people can write down whatever they want. Typically the way forms work is that there are checkboxes, and there are limits to the number of checkboxes that you can put on a form, and this is something that all agencies grapple with in terms of figuring out how expansive they want it to be. Right now in the Census Bureau, in the decennial census, you can actually write down whatever you want under other race, and then the question is, are those numbers large enough for the Census Bureau subsequently to aggregate them up to report it out? Sometimes they will reclassify people, and that is important. That is an important caveat for the Census Bureau. The Census Bureau does it. My understanding is that the California state agencies do not do that. But the Census Bureau does engage in some reclassification if there are certain categories. For example, Tamil is a language category in India. If someone put down Tamil, they will get reclassified as Asian Indian for purposes of aggregated reporting. So they don't change the identity, but it depends on how they aggregate up into different categories.
And this doesn't change the right of individuals to actually withdraw or not report at all. Every person, my understanding is, whether it's health, education, etc., they could say, hey, I don't want to be discriminated against. I don't want to give the government any tools to discriminate against me, whether it's ethnic preference, etc. People still have the right to be able to do it.
It is self-identification, and it is a choice. Absolutely right.
And so if people have the ability to be able to choose whichever they want, or change over time, or withhold that kind of information, how accurate a statistical picture does it actually provide for any education or health professionals?
Well, we're talking about data that are markers of disadvantage. So while we might think that we live in a society where I can choose to be one identity today and another identity tomorrow, for most of these groups we're talking about markers of disadvantage that impede them. Say, for example, talking about cancer rates. We know that cancer rates are much higher among certain detailed origin groups than others. We also know that when it comes to educational attainment, whether you're Chinese or whether you're Cambodian means a world of difference in terms of your life chances. So the kinds of, my understanding is that when we're talking about education and health, these are not just declarations of identity. These are large material consequences that flow out of discrimination. The kind of discrimination that you might worry about is very different from the other types of discrimination that people experience in their daily lives based on their language proficiency, based on the way they look, and other barriers based on the kinds of neighborhoods in which they live.
Now, you've talked about on the health side, but in terms of the education side especially, my question, the voters in 1996 adopted Proposition 209 to remove racial and ethnic preference within the state of California. And so why would we seek to make our data more complex in regards to racial or ethnic identity rather than the way it currently is?
Well, voters also had a chance on a subsequent initiative to stop collecting data on race, and they chose not to go down that path because they know that regardless of what should go into decision-making on any particular decisions, in terms of figuring out outcomes of different groups, we live in a society that is marked by race. We do not live in a post-racial society, and that includes with the growing number of people who identify as multiracial. We are not going beyond race here, and ultimately, if the voters decide down the road that they want to implement something where they don't want to collect any data on race, they could choose to do so. The only caution I would say is if you look at societies like France that don't collect data on race, they actually don't know what the problems are that actually exist and then they have riots on the streets. So we can figure out, whether it's the actual data collection that's a problem or other problems in society that need our attention, that need the kind of measures to be able to solve those problems.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my questions.
Ms. Baker?
Thank you. And this may have been addressed. I had to be absent. But it's my understanding that current law makes the disaggregation of this data completely possible already, that it doesn't require a mandate. Can you comment on that if you haven't already?
Yes. There's a lot of things that aren't prohibited by law that aren't happening. And this is one that's not happening. It might be permissible, but it isn't happening. It hasn't happened. And that's our job as legislators representing the people of California to make policy that makes progress. And there's a price tag to this, so it's not free. Maybe that's the barrier to preventing those with intentions to do this from doing it in the past. But it hasn't been done, and we think there's great value to having it done, to actually removing the invisibility from some of these monolithic aggregated categories and revealing what has been previously concealed with respect to disparate outcomes in health and education, so that we can craft evidence-based solutions to the problems that we see.
Do you have a sense of what that cost may be? Have you received any input or rough figures?
It's been department specific. We've kept this bill narrow to the Department of Public Health and UC, CSU, and community colleges in order to keep the costs down. We've seen multi-department price tags on similar bills in the past be in the multiple millions. We've also crafted this bill so that it's consistent with data collection processes that already exist. UC already collects data consistent with the disaggregated categories existent in the U.S. Census. So does CSU. They do 2/3 of that data collection, so this would cover the 1/3 gap that's been left behind. Community colleges don't do that yet, so we'd ask community colleges to conform with CSU and USC and UC. And Department of Public Health doesn't currently do this. So there will be some costs. There'll be 6-figure or 7-figure costs, we expect, but we don't have a full Department of Finance analysis at this point.
Understood. And I would be supporting the bill. I share, I think, some of the good points that Mr. Harper has raised with respect to how the data is used. And that's why I will focus my scrutiny. Once these data are available, what then we do with it, I think, is important to be vigilant about. What's the right thing to do, but I will be supporting your bill. I hope the fiscal effect is much smaller than what you've indicated, and we can be looking for ways to make that the case.
Thank you, Assemblymember.
Any witnesses in opposition? I'm sorry, Ms. Weber.
Thank you. I want to thank Mr. Bonta for bringing this forward. I know there is a perceived price tag in doing this, but I think as a committee we need to understand that this is it's not just a matter of collecting data, because it's as you pointed out, it's the importance of the data and what the data teaches us. Probably the greatest disservice we've done probably to any community has been to what we call the API community, because it is so extremely diverse. And when I was on the school board, Kinja Ima, who some of you may know as a researcher, did a lot of work on the various Asian communities that existed in San Diego, and basically educated us on the tremendous disservice we did as an educational institution because of the lack of information we had about all the various communities that we had. We generally look at the Asian community and think, oh, they're all high achievers, just in an educational sense. When you break that data down, you realize the tremendous disparity and gaps that exist in terms of achievement of those groups. The ones that don't finish high school, the ones that have high tendency for teenage pregnancy, the limitations oftentimes in certain communities that are placed on women and their achievement. And we had just put them all in one group, and because there was a high enough achievement of one group, it had a tendency to cover the problems that exist in all the other groups. And so when you disaggregate data, you actually become a better elected official, you become a better policymaker, you become a better public servant, because you recognize the differences in the groups that are there, not for the purpose of giving them an advantage, as some would think with Prop 209 or some of those things, but really as our responsibility to make sure that we're doing the kind of policies that make sense and make a difference. If we're going to do educational policy, if we're going to do health policy, if we're going to look at how we serve different communities, if we lump them all together and know that there's this tremendous gap, I mean, there's really a huge gap that exists in all these communities, then we do a disservice. So I really thank you for that. We discovered that on our school board with the educational policies we had, that when we looked at the API community, we looked at them in one quick brush and didn't think there were gaps of achievement, and therefore did not develop programs specifically to address the gap that was there, that was our responsibility to develop at the time. So this would at least make us at this level, at the UC level, the CSU level, and at our health level, to begin to at least focus on those areas that are there, to be better policymakers and better public servants as we address the critical issues that they face. So I thank you so very much for bringing this. It's about time that we begin this process. It may be costly at some point, but I think overall we will save money, because at this point we have a shotgun approach to the problems and we're not as effective as we could be, but we could begin to address the critical issues in these two areas that would make a difference, and in the long run not only serve the people better, but for the state of California obviously make progress and save money for the state. So thank you.
Mr. Williams?
I just wanted to note that this is one of the API caucus's high priorities for the year. We have attempted to do a bill like this before. As Mr. Bonta has indicated, cost has sometimes got in the way of its successful passage. So we do trust Mr. Bonta in trying to push this as far as possible and still hopefully have a bill that moves us forward. Thank you.
Any witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Levine, second by Ms. Weber. The motion is due pass to the Health Committee. Madam Secretary, if you'd call the roll.
Medina?
Aye.
Medina, aye. Baker? Aye. Baker, aye. Bloom? Aye. Bloom, aye. Chavez? Aye. Chavez, aye. Harper?
No.
Harper, no. Irwin? Aye. Irwin, aye. Jones Sawyer? Aye. Jones Sawyer, aye. Levine? Aye. Levine, aye. Linder? Linder, aye. Lowe? Santiago? Aye. Santiago, aye. Weber? Aye. Weber, aye. Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye.
Assemblymember Bonta, the measure passes 11 yes, 1 no. I will still keep it open for add-ons for any members who want to add on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members and staff.
Thank you. Moving on to item 1, Ms. Eggman.